Okay, I was telling people at the conference, and there were several of you there, it was really great that you could come, that it's always hard for me to figure out how to kind of start these, so we'll just start. This is Module 6, and if you were at the conference, you did get a copy of all the materials for Module 6. And if you did not come to the conference, I have it on the news page. It's a full packet of everything that you'll need for Module 6, which is 2 parts. The focus of Module 6 is on language assessment, and it is particularly focused on English. And so, as you know, for some students that will be in speech through the air, and for others it will be in written language. And for others it is simultaneous communication. So it really just sort of depends on the function or the role of English in a student's career. So we talk about that in the notes. I have that in the notes, a nice discussion. So anyway, if we open this up, I think it'll help us kind of walk through. Well, let me start here first. Let me go to Content, and just so you see that Module 6, I do have the overview, but that's also included in this. So if you print this out, you'll have the overview. I also have the same setup. So you have a launch question. You have everything here for Explore, Amy's notes. It's a chapter in language assessment, which really kind of focuses on language sampling analysis, which is what you'll learn to do in this module. Then there are procedures, and then there's a PowerPoint that sort of explains the procedures. But again, all this is going to be in this packet. Summarize. What you will do for summarize briefly, I'll go over it a little bit more here, is I give you a video of a child who's using English speech. He also uses some sign language for support, but for the most part we're going to be evaluating his oral English. It's a challenging sample, and I wanted to give you something just a little bit challenging so that you would test your English language skills, your listening skills, your transcription skills, and your analysis skills. So Nick is the student. We'll watch a video of Nick, and then I walk you through, and I'll show you that, how to transcribe and analyze his English language. Then we use the tassel, which do I have it here? I have it at home, but I don't see it in my. You have a copy of this and all the forms for the teacher assessment of spoken language. So yes, it's good for spoken language. It can also be used for written language because it's a very sort of structured way of moving from simple to more complex English form. And you'll work with a partner on this to work through the analysis and then to finish the analysis up. There are 2 samples or sentences that Nick has not completed, that are not transcribed. You and your partner will transcribe, analyze, and then complete the analysis and think about goals. A goal being, I'm going to move to the next level of the tassel, and benchmarks, which will be what specific English language forms would you be setting as goals to work on. And then the apply, which is in week 2, is you identify a student that you yourself do a language sampling analysis for. But all of this is in here. So let me go back to the front page, and I'm going to open up this document that you can print. Here's what you have. You have the overview, you have my notes, you have chapter 11, which is about language sampling analysis. You have a copy of the PowerPoint, which helps kind of walk you through each of the steps. You have the procedures for language sampling analysis, and with that you'll see Nick sample. If you don't have a student who is either writing, we kind of focus on written language because that's a little bit easier for you to collect. And we never, students are all very different. You're going to be looking at different aspects of English for each student. But for this assignment, using written language kind of helps us practice the skills better. And so if you do not have a student who is writing sentences or doing written language, then I have an alternative assignment, which I'll go over with you. Then I also include, because we'll talk a little bit about the role of students who use ASL through the air and who then write English, how you try and balance and use both of those skills that a student has. But you have to know something about their ASL language development. And then there's another ASL checklist that I think is helpful for that as well. So let's just kind of work through number one. This is the overview. We have the launch. I kind of went through this. The summarize, again, is your work with a partner. And I'll kind of walk through that. Let's get to the materials here. I'm going to show you about the language sampling analysis. So these are my notes. And they really do talk about, they kind of review back on content, form, and function and some of the things that we've looked at up to this point. And now we're focusing on syntax, English language syntax. And so you'll read through those. I'm trying to think if there's, this is sort of a how we collect the sample, analyze it, and interpret it, and then identify goals and objectives, or goals and benchmarks. I do introduce this framework for kind of categorizing your student in terms of his or her communication. I'm not sure why that's not showing up here, but and it really is about sign only, sign being mostly sign, and then but also having some oral communication, and what you can do to assess English language. Someone who uses simultaneous communication, so uses sign language but also uses oral communication, primarily through simultaneous communication. Someone who primarily uses oral and might use sign as support. And someone who primarily uses, that's sort of the same. Well, they're kind of crossed over in terms of the procedure, so I include all the categories that would work. And then someone who is fully oral and using speech communication. So English language would be important in their through-the-air communication. It would also be important in their developing written language. And then here's your task. The task for Summarize is to work with your partner, look through all of the procedures, look for language sampling analysis, look at Nick's specific example where I actually do most of the work, but I also walk you through the analysis of individual. I have like 3 or 4 samples where you actually can watch me analyze an utterance for its English language structure. When we use the tassel, this is also in my notes, and you will also look at it when you do your reading of the tassel materials. You look at number of words that a student uses and the kinds of number of verbs and the numbers and the kinds of structures. And that's kind of your guide. So if you can use those steps, and those are pretty well laid out in the procedures, that can get you at the right level of the TASL, or English Language Development. Watch the video, transcribe the last 2 samples, everything else is transcribed, and then analyze it, fill in information on the summary form, that's all included, identify the goals, and then the benchmarks, and that's what you turn in. You turn in 1 team assignment. So if you do that on the discussion board, each team will have, or each pair will have, will hand in their assignment. So these are all the instructions. This is in the overview. So what I want to get to next then is to look at, here are, in fact, this is the chapter. I'm sorry it's on the side, but when you print it out, it'll be easier. But this is the chapter on language sampling analysis. This is a PowerPoint that just kind of walks you through what I did for Nick and kind of how you do this. So I watched the video, I transcribe. Here are some ideas for transcribing, so you kind of use a system. And then I analyze, and then this is kind of the form, an example of the form, and then I look at the TASL. I compare number of words, number of verb forms, and the sentence structures. And that's how I begin my leveling on the TASL. And what I do is I determine for each utterance or each written language sample, I determine what level the student is on and what the structure is. So the sentence type, and 8 words, 2 verbs, level 4. And that's the structure. So this is just another way to give you some examples. Then these are the procedures. If you follow the procedures, again, it tells you exactly what to do. This is Nick's sample. I give you some information on Nick. I start from the video and I do the analysis. I give you the opportunity to do some analysis. I want you to finish the last 2 and analyze. And then I want you to fill in some more. So this is your guide for the summarize. Okay, what else do I have in here? If you need an alternative assignment, here is this is for your final, not for this week, but for the second week. This would be a sample you could use. And I talk about also including a developmental written sample. So look at the alternative. If you have to do the alternative, let me know and I can help you know exactly what you're supposed to do. But it's there. And then these are some examples of ASL checklists, because the idea that if you want to bridge between someone who primarily only uses ASL and someone who's learning to do written language using this bridging process. So these are 2 really good and interesting ways to understand what a child's ASL development is, so you can use that to teach English. All right, so that week 1 is your work with a partner with Nick's sample. Week 2 is your own sample. So if you have any questions about which student to use, what you should be collecting, please email and let me know. I love this part of it. I love the analysis, and every child is different, so you really have to kind of pick and choose how you approach analyzing their English language knowledge, but this is a good way, and the TASL is a very good tool. All right, any questions, let me know.